Alright, so we definitely have to get some practice in. Yesterday I was having all sorts of issues with this combination. Also, there's so many more people that showed up for this. On the thing, there were only like 9 people signed up. We might even have a full server. Because last time I bothered looking, it was at 20. Also, I was informed of some of my potential issues. Because evidently, in Assetto Corsa, the higher the number your traction control is set to, or your ABS, the stronger the effect is. I'm used to every other game that does the exact opposite. But I have a feeling that was heavily contributing to the understeer I was getting. God, there's people already doing 47s and 49s, it's not even their fastest laps. It definitely feels like the car is able to rotate on throttle a little bit now. Which is exactly what I wanted from it. So I think that gentleman, I mean, it's Peter Dodd, I'm pretty sure he knows what he's talking about anyway. Considering he is one of the admins for REVS. The thing I'll have to be careful of is my setup is, unfortunately, was done with that maximum, unbeknownst to me, maximum traction control, maximum ABS. So actually what it's probably going to be worth doing is going in here and giving it a bit of that. Alright, let's try that. And for qualification, we'll probably just take the fuel out ourselves. Possibly take some downforce off. But probably not even. But now I have to be even more careful of the curbs, more or less. It's going to be even more deadly than they were. It is really nice to have the car actually rotate a bit on the exit of some of those slow corners, though. Instead of just digging in and understeering like crazy like it would before. Still completely blowing that corner. My brake point just doesn't seem to work for it anymore. God, there's so many people in this race. Also, I think no matter what you do fuel-wise, you're gonna end up having to pit. So I think I want my fuel to last me for most of the race, for about 2/3, and we'll try and make these tires last that long. The other difficulty is that I also did not realize fuel for this server is set to 200%, tires are set to 400%. So mediums will definitely start getting very bad. And the fuel, I'm not even sure a full tank will last you the whole time, considering it's using like 5 liters a lap. But it's definitely going to turn it into a completely different beast than it was last time. Last time it was just a bunch of guys up front, all going fast. And then a bunch of people just leaving. Whereas this time, pit strategy is probably going to become pretty important. But I don't think I have the app enabled to let me do pit stops ahead of time, so that is unfortunate. I think the car's much better to drive than it was before, though. Now that I've drastically reduced the traction control and ABS, it actually turns for me now. I'm still only doing 51s, though. There's guys that are doing 47s and they're not even their fastest laps. I mean, it's possible they're on soft tires and low fuel, but even so, I usually pick up hardly anything when I take fuel out and throw tires at it. I mean, like there, Romano doing a 47, and it's not his best. But again, with the multipliers on, it is possible that with medium tires in the race, I will be faster than some of the guys doing only hard tires without changing. Still gotta stay the hell away from those curbs. Well, I'm consistently slow. Let's see what happens when we throw soft tires and almost no fuel. Okay, so what... Before we do that, let's see. Full tank, 25 laps. So yeah, even on a full tank, you're not going to go the full distance because the race is 30 laps. So I honestly think somewhere around here, trying to get about 20 laps out of it is probably going to be the best bet for the race itself. Well, for what I want anyway. It's going a little bit longer than halfway. And then slapping on another set of mediums. Because the softs literally just won't last. There's absolutely no way. I mean, they don't last even when... They only last about 4 or 5 laps when you have the tire wear at normal, let alone at 400%. They're probably only going to be really good for 1 hot lap. So they really do become a qualifying tire only. It feels so nice to have gotten rid of the majority of the understeer. There's still definitely some there, but it's not anywhere near as bad as it was before. Alright, let's see what we can do with soft tires, low fuel. We suddenly pick up like 2 seconds, that'll help bolster me at least. But I have a feeling with these drivers and these cars and this track, I have a feeling I'm not going to do very well in this race. Oh, that understeer's still there, though. I mean, I just have to brake so early to get the car to actually hit any sort of meaningful apex. Judging by my split, I'm just gonna be slow. Unfortunately, I've never been fast around this track. And my setup is not doing me any favors. Missing that apex, which doesn't help. Yeah, I put soft tires on, take fuel out, and I'm half a second slower. I don't even know if these tires are any good for qualifying, in all honesty. And they just wear, I mean, my front left is already 85%. They just wear so fast. Well, no, it's only going to be one stop for everybody. I really don't think softs are going to be the tire to even qualify on. As wild as that is. I mean, I just don't quite know what to do. The car just doesn't, like it. The car never ever feels like it has any meaningful grip in it. Got guys up here doing 46s. I mean, there's a couple guys in front of me. There's actually quite a few guys in front of me in the 4-second over range that I could potentially have battles with, depending on how consistent I can be. But after that first hot lap, my times almost immediately dropped down to 50 whatevers. My cambers are already really high. My toe values are already moderately high. I guess I can try and get some extra turning out of the fronts. Ugh. It's just sort of the same thing I always run into at this particular track, no matter the car. I always run into just enormous understeer. I'm not sure if it's just Kunos's version of this track, the default setups, my setup changes, or what. Or maybe it's just the way Barcelona is. But I can't ever seem to dial out the understeer around here without making the car super unstable. Like, it seems to be either deal with the understeer or have a highly unstable car. I'm not a huge fan of either of those options, if I'm honest. Alright. Qualifying fuel in. This number of estimated laps is completely wrong. This one is much, much, much more accurate. Right, hashtag understeer, exactly. It surprises me how many of the guys are using default liveries. Considering how many of them have custom liveries for other series. I also need to watch my tire temps now that I've got so much toe in the car. I might have inadvertently started generating way too much tire heat. Mostly I'm just glad I figured out how in the world to the traction control settings. Yeah, the way they handle custom liveries is not ideal. That's for sure. Unfortunately, Fabulous, I do not speak French, so so I do not know what you said. Alright, let's see what kind of time we can do. I genuinely think mediums are going to be the qualifying tire. It just feels so weird. But the mediums just have tons more grip than the soft. The softs have a ton of grip for about half a lap, and then because of the 400% multiplier, they just really fall off before you can do anything with them. Which makes the medium actually feel like what you'd normally expect from the soft, where it feels really, really good for a decent amount of time and then starts to fall off. Unfortunately, I got very little long practice in because I was struggling with the setup so much. I just have to completely avoid the curbs, though. When the car is light, I get a lot better braking out of it, which you would expect, but like drastically better braking. I honestly wonder if the practice server is running the same multipliers. Ah, I did 50. That's better than I did in practice. Oh, the game sound is out? Yeah, there's not that much I can do about that, unfortunately. The engine noise, basically, I have to set up the sound to be appropriate for the loudest possible cars, and unfortunately some of the loud cars are very, like, ear-splittingly loud. So because of that, I tend to have the game sound a bit lower than normal. But to be fair, this car sounds awful anyway. It's a really, really boring engine note. The hard tire might be the race tire. Because I've already got these at 98% and I'm not even pushing them. That's almost what it sounds like. I mean, it doesn't sound tremendously terrible, but it sounds pretty bland. I turned it up by 10% in OBS, so we'll see. It just means some of the louder cars will be way too loud. I think I'm just going to take that qualifying. I think I'm actually going to do some practice on hard tires and see how they feel. And somehow that 150 put me in 8th. That's way further up the grid than I thought I would be. Well, and the weird thing is there's other cars that sound really, really good. Oh, unfortunately I timed that really poorly. I was trying to get out of his way. I mean, if the hard tires don't feel that much different than the mediums, then I think actually 2 sets of hards are going to be the better choice. I think the mediums will actually wear out very fast. Yeah, considering how good that car is supposed to sound, I would definitely agree with that. It honestly makes me think that they either didn't get high quality audio from Mercedes, or they didn't record high quality audio themselves. One or the other. Because that car is supposed to be a very low grumble that should sound absolutely fantastic. Yeah, the AMG GT sort of fixes it in a sense. Hey, monkey. I mean, in all honesty, the Corvette still sounds the best, because, oh, that noise it makes is just so ridiculously good. So right now we are not going for qualifying times. We're on hard tires with well, not full fuel, but race levels of fuel to take us about 20 laps in. Which actually, okay, so using 5 liters per lap, I'm gonna have 10 laps left. So I'm gonna need to take around probably 60, 65 liters to be safe. Give myself a buffer of 2 laps. God, these tires are awful. They last forever, though. I think this is going to be the smarter tire choice. The other thing to remember, in the bottom right corner where it says tire wear, in Assetto Corsa, that is 90% is really when you want to switch off tires. Yeah, the fuel is set to 200% multiplier, and the tires are set to 400% to force at least 1 pit stop. If you go on mediums, I think 2 pit stops is probably the better option. And I don't really want to be making 2 pit stops, considering my pace is so bad anyway. I think hard tires, 1 pit stop about 20 laps in. I might be able to go onto mediums for the last 10. They should last 10 laps decently enough. So hard tires, then mediums. That might be a decent strategy. Yeah, R Factor 2 is definitely the game that handles tire wear in general in the most reasonable way. Where if you're nice to the tires, if you keep them in a nice heat band, then even as they start to get worn, you can still get speed out of them, particularly as you're burning off fuel. Whereas both Assetto Corsa and Race Room both have that same issue where realistically 90% is when the tire is done for. And if you get it all the way down to like 80, you're just screwed. You've waited way too long and your tire's just gone. And again, like you say, if you get down to 70, you've probably already popped the tire. Gonna have about 3 seconds a lap slower with these tires, it looks like, and this fuel. Oh, 4 seconds a lap slower. And again, that session delta on the left-hand side, that's against my own time, not against the session best. That's just how much slower I am as opposed to my qualifying pace. I think it has to be the strategy I go for, though. It's like the only option I have for how poor the car feels. So I think, okay, so 110 divided by 5 is 21 laps. No, 22-ish laps. But I seem to be fluctuating between 5.02 liters a lap and about 4.98 liters per lap. So when I'm doing 54s, this will probably be a little more than 22. But if I go 22, then I can almost guarantee to toss mediums on for the last 8 laps and be relatively quick. I think we're going to go with that. So unless I get tons of damage, the plan is to go about 21, 22 laps, then toss either... Well, to be safe, I'll probably toss 50 liters in, just to guarantee that I have enough to get to the end. So I'll toss in enough to do 10 laps, but realistically, we only need to do 8 or 9. And then we'll slap on mediums. It should be a relatively short stop, actually. The tires will be the part that take the longest. I think that'll be good. That'll be the best we can do. 13th is way better qualifying than I expected. And yeah, one person is trying softs. One person out of 22. No, 2 other people are trying softs also. But only one person is actually getting them to work for them and qualifying. One person's qualifying on hards. Well, that's not true. They might have qualified on something else and now be trying hard tires. On the bright side, my car looks great. So all the people lapping me will be looking at the gloriousness. I guess that is one thing to consider. So if I'm doing 54s, if the guys at the top drop about the same amount of pace I do, proportional. So if they drop about 2.5 to 3 seconds, they're going to be doing 49 and 50s. So that'll give them about 4 to 5 seconds per lap over me. That means in 20 laps, I should be lapped at least once. So theoretically, I'm actually only driving to lap 29 instead of lap 30. Because the chance that I get lapped is extremely high, considering the pace these guys have at the front. I'm still going to put my strategy out to lap 30, because everybody has to pit. But realistically, I probably only need to strategize out to lap 29. Alright, let's go back out in our race conditions. Still a lot of people setting qualifying times. There's no way in hell I'm beating my 150 though. I can just sit on that. I mean, there's legitimately just no way. I'm amazed I even did a 150, period. Yeah, there's a bunch of people going faster now, though. God. Also, damage is on 100%, so you don't want to hit anything. It's very similar to 100% damage in R Factor, where it's very, very brutal. And it will affect your top end very quickly, particularly if you hit the front end on anything. I don't know if Assetto Corsa ever takes off wings. I don't think it does. I think it'll just sort of damage and deform them. Not visually, but in terms of the downforce you get from them. Oh, Kevin just went P1. He is so ludicrously fast. A lot of these guys are ludicrously fast. My job is just going to be to hang on and try and finish outside the bottom 5. That's my goal for this race. Although that being said, my goal for the R Factor race was the same, to basically finish in the top 10, and I almost had a top 5, so you never know. Race conditions may just suit me better. Probably won't, but they might. The lack of grip on hard tires is rough to deal with. As soon as I start turning, that outside front tire just immediately screams. Hey, a 57, that's awful. Oh. I guess if I'm going this slow, I can use the curbs. That's the other thing to consider, is realistically these hard tires aren't going to feel good until like 3 laps in, because they're going to be colder than they're supposed to be, and you really have to rip off that surface layer of oily rubber off of them to sort of feel them in. But I mean, I can see on the session delta, I'm just so much significantly slower on this tire with this fuel load than the medium tire. I mean, I'm not even through the second sector. I'm already 5 seconds down on my own time. For some of the faster guys, a 2-stop strategy might actually work. Just doing 10-10-10 on medium tires. But then only taking fuel for the last stint. So you take the same fuel strategy that I'm taking, but the first stop is just for tires, no fuel. Then you take fuel and tires in the second stop. That literally might just be the faster strategy for a lot of these guys. God, I dropped all the way to 17th. At one point, I was 8th in this session. It is worth saying. Where are the other McLarens? There's one McLaren way up there. And the other 2 of us are pretty far back. Well, we'll see what we can do. Going about 21, 22 laps, and then switching on to mediums and throwing 50 liters in. Gonna be interesting if nothing else. The big thing is, hopefully, there's not a big kerfuffle into the first corner. Because with damage on 100%, everybody needs to be a little more careful than normal. But it is GT3, which is usually very competitive, so we'll see. I just went ahead and lifted there. It's probably going to cost me at least one position, but it's better than trying to run into these guys would have been. So there's one car still on my right. Oh man, we're 3 wide. I think we're 3 wide again. The other thing is I don't really know what strategy these other guys are on, so some of them might be on medium tires, whereas I'm on the hards. Alright, we finally cleared that Audi. Oh, somebody went way off. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, son of a bitch. That was all going so nicely. And then it all turned to shit. Well, that's exactly what I needed to not happen. Now we have no choice. We have to come in for repairs. And there's still no way that we can last the whole time. Might as well toss on a new set of tires. That's really disappointing. So unfortunately, it won't affect my strategy at all. I'm still going to have to come in later, because the maximum amount of fuel you can put in is for 25 laps. I don't know where my pit stall is. There it is. Gonna be probably a long stop. That's incredibly disappointing. I mean, I guess if there's a bright side, a bunch of us were caught in it, but that's not really a bright side. That just means a bunch of us got caught in it. My beautiful car. My beautiful car. I'm gonna have to watch the replay though, like I don't even know how that really happens. Looks like there's at least, from what I can see, it looks like there's one behind me. I mean, yeah, I slowed way down, and I finally thought I saw an opening, and suddenly the green Lambo kept spinning across when it looked like he had finally saved it. I just eventually ran out of options. Well, now we're definitely not racing to lap 30. I wonder if anybody took the escape to pit option. Because because if they did, they're going to have a massive penalty next time, because with the REVS races, you're not allowed to do that. You have to come into your pit and do work that way. If you ever escape back to pits. Actually, if you ever escape back to pits, you might just be disqualified for the next event. Well, if there is a bright side, we have clean track. So we can just put in our own laps here. But with that in mind, I think I'm probably gonna come in around lap 20 instead of 21 or 22. Because again, I'm already a lap behind, so there's no way I'm gonna finish all 30 laps. Although that being said, the race end timer is pretty long, and Assetto Corsa doesn't finish the race when, like, if you're a lap down, you still actually have to do that last lap. So fuel-wise, I'll probably still be safe and throw in enough fuel. One of the other nice things is, at least in Assetto Corsa, at least when I do repair those damages, I come out with a brand new car effectively, which is very, very nice. It's not realistic, but it's a hell of a lot more fun to be able to get back out and actually race competitively, as opposed to having still a screwed up car when you come out of the pits. I'm still not even sure how in the world that much carnage happens at that point on the track. Like, it's not a place where you usually expect craziness to happen. I mean, I guess if one person loses it on the fast right and then spins down into another one, maybe it can cause that, but I'll be really interested to see what in the world happened on the replay. But considering how many people that negatively impacted, there might actually be repercussions for that. Again, in REVS, they're very, very lenient. 9 times out of 10, it takes somebody specifically saying something for any action to happen, because it's just sort of more or less up to the people involved in the incidents of, like, whatever, it was a minor racing incident, I don't care, stuff like that. But again, something that big that affected that many people, we'll have to look at the replay. It's entirely possible it was just a giant accident at a confluence of crazy happenings. It is more than possible. But no matter what happened, it was... I mean, I just came onto the straightaway and there were cars everywhere. I mean, aside from just stopping my car, which would have been super dangerous for everybody behind me, I pretty much explored all of the options I had left. Oh, we'll see what we can salvage. I have a feeling there might be a lot of people leaving this race, so we might just be gifted something in the top 15 by the end of it, but we'll see. Trying to see, so... Emmanuel van Meegem is the first person we're actually racing against behind us, and the person we're racing against ahead of us is not even on our relative. So the person ahead of us is not any of those 3 people on our relative bar, so they're more than 30 seconds ahead. So it really looks like I'm more or less just racing the guys behind me. But Flavio and Emmanuel are both for position behind. Hoyle is not. At least I don't think Hoyle is. Yeah, so on the minimap, Hoyle is the yellow arrow, so he is ahead of me in the order. Oh, Romano is the one that's right ahead of me, and he just left, so we will pick up that position probably this time around. Either that or next time. And then after that, it's Burrows. No matter what, this is going to be a crazy race. I'm very interested to see the replay of that happening. Also, somehow, Kevin Cox ended up way back in the pack, even after his stellar qualifying. So I think there was a lot of stuff that went down that I didn't see because I was so far back. On the bright side, my pace is consistent. On the downside, it's 55s in its consistency. The guy behind me just did a 51 for comparison. Although, it is always possible that people are on mediums instead of hards. And I know for a fact these hards will probably last 30 laps. If not, they'll at least last 20. And the mediums start wearing after about 4. And then they're pretty tattered by about lap 12. So if you're trying to make mediums last 20 laps, the end of your stint is going to get pretty slow. Whereas although I'm putting in 55s, they're very consistently going to be 55s for the duration of these tires. Now Hoyle is catching me and he is on the lead lap where I am not. So as he catches me, when he gets to a point where, hopefully he catches me on the main straight this time, because that's one of the easier places to let somebody by. That doesn't super impact you or them. Yeah, consider I'm already getting the blue flag, he should be about a second back now. Or maybe that was just under the braking zone. And the car I'm coming up on is not a car I am fighting for position, which is unfortunate. But if I am faster than him, I will try and pass him cleanly and take off after him and just sort of ignore the blue flags I get when I get by him. God, if you miss that turn-in point. No, Hoyle's still too far back. It'd cost me too much time to let him by here. Hey, I put in a faster lap somehow, even completely blowing that last corner. He's inching closer. Car actually feels pretty stable on hard tires, as weird as that may be. I'm used to hard tires feeling awful. But it actually feels pretty sort of standard, I guess. Well, I'm braking too early for a lot of these corners. It should be close enough that I can let him by at the top of the hill here. Sort of going to stay over here and then just lift, and he should be able to shoot by. He must have a lot of downforce on though, because he really, considering how early on that straightaway I lifted and how little time he actually gained. That's really surprising. It's really hard to spot that apex when you're coming down that hill with the lighting where it is. Oh, Flavio got by Emmanuel. So they've got a bit of a battle back there. I'm also trying to slow my downshifting a little bit, so I'm not insta-downshifting. It's a really bad habit I've developed that it's really hard to break. And in a Formula 1 car, it's great. And in cars that can handle it, it can actually help you decelerate a bit when you're using the engine to help you brake, but it's most of the time it just ends up having you lose a bit of braking efficiency. Because the engine is trying to push the car forward more than it should be. And basically then the tires have to try and account for both the engine and your brakes instead of just your brakes. We're still catching up to Wenham, it seems like. And Hoyle is catching him big time. I think they're actually fighting for a position. Again, being a lap down, the chance that I somehow end up making that lap back on Wenham is very low, but at the same time, if I am just outright faster than him, there's no real reason for me not to pass him either. Flavio has picked up a ton of speed somewhere. Seems like so is Emmanuel, though. Because not too long ago, the gap between those two was 10-ish seconds. Now it's below 5 for both of them. But people on medium tires are going to start thinking about a potential pit stop soon, because we are in lap 8, which means the leaders are on lap 9. Or people on the lead lap are on lap 9. I just have just an overall lack of grip that I even have on the medium tire. Now this is for position, so I do not need to give this position up. I can definitely defend. Wow. He is so much faster in a straight line than I am. That was insane how much extra speed he had. I guess he did have the draft before that, but still, usually that Z4 is not all that fast in a straight line. Oh, Wenham lost it there. I don't know if he was going for the pits or what. That was odd from Flavio. I wonder if he clipped the grass a tiny bit. Yeah, even without the draft, he is faster than in a straight line than I am. I would venture a guess that both of these guys are probably on medium tires. They might just flat out be faster than me, but considering the qualifying times that all three of us set, I'm pretty sure these guys are on mediums. So they might be, if they're already planning on doing 2 stops, and they're on mediums, then they would also probably be lighter on fuel than I am. Because judging by the tire wear I'm getting, I can easily go to lap 20. I probably wouldn't want to go much further than that, but I can go to lap 20. I still hate having to completely avoid the curbs. It also makes racing side by side tougher than it needs to be. Because you just can't give as much room to the inside. Like, you have to give more room to the inside, knowing that that person can't use the curbs. Unless you want to be a jerk and force them to use the curbs. That is not very nice. I think I am now the last guy running, because Steve, on the left-hand side, bottom there, Steve Jones has exited the race, and Romano has exited the race. So I'm pretty sure I'm the last car actually still running. Oh, there's one car in the pits, though. That confirms what I thought about Flavio, that he was on mediums. Which means he is likely making 2 stops. So we'll probably make another stop in about 8 laps. Unless he's doing his medium stint now, and now he's going on to hards. Which is also a possible strategy, where you start light on fuel, do about 10 laps on mediums, and then just fill it up and do the rest on hards. Well, not fill it up, but throw about 110 in. Oh, never mind, that wasn't Flavio. That was Fabio. But there is somebody actually behind me now, because there is a burnt orange marker. Oh, Wenham pitted, okay. Now I see it. Now, if the 2 ahead are on the mediums, then I would expect them to pit this lap or the next lap, because those tires just don't last. Or I would expect to start gaining on them every lap from here on out, and their pace to just start dropping like a rock. Oh, neither of them pitted. I guess it is possible their setups and driving styles just work better on hards. That is always a possibility. Because I know for a fact around this track, in any car, I am slow. I'm really looking forward to the next race we do, though. The second race is at Albert Park, which should be fantastic. Ever since Plex pointed it out, every time I say that, I notice it now. But it should be a very good race there. And it should be a track that suits the McLaren, because it's such a flat circuit with a lot of medium to high speed corners. And in my testing I did around Silverstone, I was able to get a better lap time out of this around Silverstone, than with almost all the other GT3s. So I think that flat, high-speed circuit really suits the McLaren. I know for a fact this track doesn't suit it, but that being said, I also know for a fact I am bad around this circuit, so that is a big part of the equation. Also, if I had figured out that the default setup was so bad on this in the first place, I would have had more time to work on my own setup. So I had to just completely overhaul it. But now we've got Flavio. He must have spun. My fuel usage is actually better than I thought it would be. I figured it'd be a little bit over 5 a lap. It's actually a little bit below that point. If Flavio did spin, his tires are going to be completely done for, though. It is kind of annoying how popular that Z4 is in Assetto Corsa, though. I just find it such a boring car to drive. I mean, again, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. You can't ever call it bad. But it's just so uninteresting. It feels like it has no character to it. It's almost like it's the baseline GT3 car in a sense. Where it doesn't oversteer, it doesn't understeer. But it's also not super fast in a straight line. It's not super fast through any particular corner. It's just very, very middle of the road everywhere. Which makes it very, very simple to drive, because you know it's going to be decent on every track. I just find it so boring. Hey, I just did my fastest lap. I've learned many, many times in that sort of situation, just don't try taking it at full speed. Just don't bother. It's much more worth braking and maintaining control of your car around the situation than it is trying to take it at full speed. Now, this person behind likely has a fresh set of tires, so I'm going to try and go wide here and let them by. Because I don't want to negatively influence his race. And I would just be holding him up pretty drastically through this corner. Evidently Thomas has a livery he did not submit, though. That's the only way you get a pure white car on the REVS servers. Basically, if your car is pure white, it means that you did not submit your livery through the skin thread, because otherwise it would have been in the skin pack, which most of us would have downloaded. Some people wouldn't have bothered, but still got a few laps before we're pitting here. And Emmanuel has really opened the gap to me. Although he might be in the pits. No, he's not. Nathan Hoyle, who we are not fighting for position. It'd be really nice on that real time if people that you were fighting for positions names were white, if people who were ahead of you had names in yellow or red or blue or just any other color to help you signify just by glancing there. Whether you were actually battling with that other person. Because now I have to look all the way in the far left corner to see that I'm not battling Hoyle, but he is having issues. So I don't want to impede him, but when he's all over the track, if I'm actually faster than him, I don't want to get held up either. I will definitely have to look for that then. Because the normal chat is awful. And again, the biggest thing is I want a relative bar that works better. Because that default real-time one doesn't actually work all that well. The further away from a sort of embedded checkpoint in the track, the further away you are from one of those, the less accurate it becomes. So sometimes somebody might be right on your bumper, but it'll still show them 1 second behind. So not only if it's more accurate, but most importantly if it has those colors to make it easier to differentiate, that would be awesome. So I'll definitely have to look that up. Oof. Oh, Flavio went. Oh, he didn't go in the pits, okay. Oh, he might have just been letting Fabio by. Hey, this time by, I will be halfway through my race. Holy cow, my front left is at 91%? What? When did that happen? Last time I looked down, it was at like 96. Did I have a big lockup I just didn't notice or something? Hey, Plex. Oh, for the chat box, okay. Well, that's at least one of the two things that I'd like to get changed. So it's at least something. Nathan Hoyle spun and then quit? Really? That's... not ideal. I was searching for words that weren't mean. It really, on the bright side, it seems like I'm not the only one that absolutely does not like this circuit in Assetto Corsa. Judging by the craziness that's gone on and judging by how many people have just exited. Just the combination of the terrible way the curbs are unusable. And then the overall just lack of grip around here. In anything. My front left is now at 88%. I don't know why my fronts are dropping so drastically and so quickly. Like last lap, my front right was at 96, now it's at 89. It doesn't feel like it's at 89. I wonder if it's just displaying me some erroneous data somehow. The fronts don't feel that bad. Well, there they did. I guess that lap was like 5 seconds slower than my best. Now, Flavio is for position. I'm amazed he hasn't come into pit yet. How many spins and issues he's had. Yeah, I guess the fact that it's not turning in for that corner anymore tells me all I need to know about the tires. That's unfortunate. I kind of figured with the shallow line I was taking, he would just jolt to the outside. But he either didn't react in time or didn't realize that's what I was doing. He was definitely faster than I was. Yeah, my fronts are just done for. That'll look like I did that on purpose, but I actually didn't. I think I'm going to have to alter my strategy and come in and change on another set of hards. Because I'm not going to be able to sustain this for 3 more laps. It's just not going to happen. Particularly with all these fast guys around me. Whew. Now we do still need to put fuel in. Probably only need to put 40 to 45 liters in, but we're still going to put 50 in. There's so many people who don't actually slow down at the entry to pit lane. I don't like that. All right. I don't think I'll have any repairs, but just in case. And because I hate running out of fuel, we'll put even more than I actually need in. I mean, the tires are going to take the longest anyway. Oh, I still had some damage somehow. Relatively quick stop, though. Flavio is still right behind us. I'm kind of amazed he was that fast on hard tires, though. Also, tire warmers make it a little easier to come back out and get straight back up to speed. Man, when the tires are fresh, you can tell. Particularly after getting off of basically tires that are done for. I really don't like the fact that my tires dropped that much life that quickly, though. Like, it literally went from one lap there decent, the next lap they're just gone. Well, my race was mostly ruined already, but that'll just make it worse. It's gonna be too detrimental to bother coming in, so we're just gonna have to deal with a busted front splitter, basically. What that should equate to. Maybe it'll turn better from the front now. I was always dreading this event in the first place anyway. Just because I don't... Again, in Assetto Corsa in particular, I really don't like this track at all. I think Joao was actually... There might have been another green Lambo, but if he's the only green Lambo, and he caused all of that stuff, and he's somehow still on the lead lap, that's going to be really, really maddening. That being said, I still haven't watched the replay, so I have no idea if he even caused it or if he was just caught up in it. But he was the only car spinning around on that back straight. But again, by the time I got to the back little straightaway, there was already one car way off to the left, taking the alternate route. Like they had just completely missed this corner. Like they had gone straight there. Then there was one car already in the gravel. There was one car off to the right, and then that Lambo was spinning in the middle of the track. So nothing else is going to be interesting to see what in the world happened, I guess. But compared to yesterday's race, this one is not very good at all. I am now officially the last car running. I mean, I guess it's possible more people are going to make stops at some point. But I don't think I'm close enough to any of the people I'm racing with to take advantage of them making a stop. And the worst part is I don't get to do that medium tire option, which I think would have been my best bet. Because if I knew for a fact those hard tires weren't going to last 20 laps, I would have just split it in half at about 16, 14, and then taken just that much fuel on board at the start, instead of taking 20 laps worth, so that I at least had 2 portions of the race where I was relatively light on fuel. Whereas now I'm just going to have the one portion right at the end, and I'm not even going to be that light on fuel. What does that PLP at the bottom mean? I just noticed that in the chat box. It says Mark Ekins, PLP, Mark Ekins. Because in the past I've always seen that pretty much only for the automatic message come up when it's like, hey, this person cut the track. I can't think what in the world PLP stands for. Like maybe pit lane something? Still going slower. The weird thing is I don't actually dislike this track all that much. Oh, pit lane penalty. Oh. Oh, so maybe speeding on entry, speeding on exit, something like that. Which is why I hit the brakes so hard when I get to the start line. Because although the engagement of the pit speed limiter is automatic, I figured it was similar to Race Room, where if you enter too fast and it can't slow you down in time, there's still a portion of time right when you get to the start of pit lane where you can definitely get a penalty for it. Or speeding in the pit lane. But considering it came up on that thing, my guess, I'm pretty positive that Assetto Corsa itself doesn't actually have any pit lane speeding penalties. So I'm guessing that's just S-Tracker doing its thing. I just assumed it was part of S-Tracker because the REVS events for Assetto Corsa require S-Tracker and P-Tracker. Did I just overtake somebody in the pits? I think I'm not last anymore. I think I'm not last. And I think I'm 2 laps down, so I only have 6 laps left. Well, plus the one I'm on. I always forget to calculate that in when I'm doing race laps. I guess Wenham's only 15 seconds ahead. Oh, nope, 25 seconds. God, that real time is so drastically inaccurate so much of the time. It says 14 again. It'll, when I cross this sector line, it'll probably jump back up. Or start creeping back up. Yep, there it goes, right back to 22. I'm so tired of this car's engine noise already. I wonder how easy it would be, or how difficult it would be, at least on my side, to just swap the engine note of this with the Corvette C7R. So it sounded like I was driving a Corvette. Because this car's engine is just so boring sounding. Like there's no interesting notes to it, there's no interesting range to it, it's just, I'm a race engine, yay. And it's a shame because the car itself is actually quite nice to drive. Just not on this track. But it just, the engine sound itself just drones. I don't know, maybe in real life it sounds better. I just know in Assetto Corsa it sounds bleh. Maybe somebody will make a sound pack for it. Now Thomas behind me is definitely not for position, but Flavio back there is. No. Yeah, but see there it says PLP cut the track on lap 24. I wonder if PLP is the acronym for the add-on. I guess that would make sense. That would actually make more sense. I feel like I have to brake so much earlier than other people. At least judging from how it looks like they're braking my rearview mirror. I'm definitely gonna have to play around with the traction control and ABS settings next time. I have a feeling this car in particular can probably be pretty drivable with traction control all the way off if I alter the diff power a little bit. And just keep the Suspension at the rear pretty soft. But judging from the tire sound under braking, I probably have the ABS a little too low. Well, I was going to pull off to the right and let these guys by, but then that other car pulled off to the right, so now I'm super confused. So we're just going to stay here. I don't know if that other car is... Maybe Thomas is a lap behind Zachary? Let's keep it all the way to the right here. Let both of them by. Oh! It's that weird thing where I expect these guys, when I'm that far off throttle, I expect them to fly past me so much faster than they actually do. It's so weird. This is just the string of guys all fighting for position, evidently. Alright, well that group of cars is done with. The other tough part is, like I said, I think Thomas is behind most of those guys. So he's at least a lap ahead of me, but I think he's a lap behind those guys. So it looks like he was trying to let them by at the same time that I was trying to let them by. That just created a really difficult situation for everybody. Okay, so now my tire's at 97. Let's see if I get that sudden, unexplained drop again. Or one of them just drops from 96, 97 to 80. Like 88. The worst thing still is just the complete lack of any feeling or grip from the car. Like, even after, this is, the craziest thing is, this car feels better than it did yesterday. Even on hard tires, it feels so much better than it did yesterday, and it still is just an understeering pig of a machine. And again, one of the main reasons I picked this car is because I tested all of them, well, I tested 4 or 5 of them at Silverstone, and this was the one I liked the most, that I was fastest in. But that being said, pretty much everything I tested at Barcelona was about the same crappy speed. So, like I said, there's something about Barcelona in Assetto Corsa where I can't get the cars to act right. I don't know if it's the tracks, the cars, or just me around it. But that being said, I've raced Barcelona in other games, and I'm perfectly fine pace-wise in there. It's just almost like the overall grip level in the tarmac isn't as high as it is in other versions of this track. Which is odd, because this track is usually in fantastic condition because it's used so much throughout the year. I mean, it's used in testing for F1, it's used in an F1 race. I think it's used by MotoGP still, which means they have 3 or 4 races on it. I think there's a couple touring car races that use the shorter version of it. So a track that sees that much use should have really good asphalt. Particularly since it's in, I think Barcelona is southern Spain. I'm pretty sure it doesn't get all that cold. I know for a fact it doesn't snow. Or if it does, it doesn't snow very much. I mean, because they do winter testing here for F1, and they need mostly warm places to do that in. I don't know, it's just odd. This is probably technically our last racing lap that counts. He came across way before the exit pit line. We were not supposed to do that. Oh, I didn't know they had a 24-hour race here also. Is that part of the 24-hour series, or is that, I guess that might be WEC, because they go to a lot of F1 circuits. I might have to look up some previous years of that and see if the cars look like they're struggling with entry. There goes Zhao. Would also be interesting to see if the GT cars have to 100% avoid the curbs. Because if the GT field in the WEC races uses the curbs, then I can guarantee for a fact that Kunos just did something wrong with how they implemented them. Because you can't use them in GT3 cars in Assetto Corsa. Unless you go all the way over the curb or just barely touch it. Because if you get anywhere near the top end of the curb without going over the back of it, your car will spin because your rear inside corner tire lifts off the ground. Okay, so yeah. There's some people finishing. Again, it's Assetto Corsa, so I actually have to do all 30 laps. Even though the race is technically over now. But yeah, I didn't know the WEC raced around here, so I'm going to have to look up their race footage later today. Because I'm super curious about that. They're deadly around here in any car. It doesn't... Like, road cars are the only ones that can sort of use them, but road cars are super soft and they can use almost any curb anyway, so that's sort of irrelevant. I mean, you see me swinging right of all the curbs. There's a very good reason for that. Particularly this one right here. If you clip any of that curb, it just sends you spinning. And I literally, yesterday, I looked at the replay and found out exactly why. And it's like I said, when you get towards the top end of the curb, your inside rear tire lifts off the ground, which obviously is going to, if you have any throttle in it whatsoever, is going to drastically upset the car, because unless you have a 0% diff, it's going to spin the outside rear very, very quick. Because that inside rear being lifted off the ground is going to spin up very, very quick, and the diff is going to do its best, but it's eventually going to slip that other rear, and then the car comes right around. Well, either way, I mean, if it's realistically, if it's a 24-hour event, it's probably either the WEC or the 24-hour series. Both of which contain... Actually, I guess does the WEC run GT3? No, they just run 2 categories of GTE, don't they? But those are set up and sprung similarly enough to a GT3 car that it should still give an indication. Oh, if it's the Dubai 24-hour group, then that's just the... I don't know their name outside of just the 24-hour series. And they run a bunch of 24-hour events. They also run at Paul Ricard, and... I was going to say Silverstone, but I think that's... The WEC is the one that runs at Silverstone. It's actually quite annoying having to finish all of your laps when your lap's down. It'd be nice if they changed that at some point in Assetto Corsa, where when the leader crosses the line, everybody who crosses the line after that point is done with their race wherever they're at. Since that's how racing works. You don't have everybody laps down finishing their laps. Yeah, the 24-hour series definitely has GT3. They might actually still have GT2 cars. I don't know if they've switched to GTE or not. Yeah, I just noticed my fronts are 91 and 93. So basically, as soon as your front tires get below 96, they just start dropping very, very, very quickly. Which doesn't make much sense. I didn't actually finish 16th. There's just a bunch of people who exited. I ended up beating Flavio, though. And Steven. Steven Wenham must have had issues towards the end. I'm going to go ahead and wait for him to finish so I have the full replay. Oh, it did give Eneth Ekins a penalty. It was pretty obvious he didn't do that on purpose. It is nice that he apologized, but it was really, really obvious right away that he did not bump into me on purpose. Yeah, I actually like that version of the track much more. Oh, you guys can't see the launcher yet. Boop, boop. Come on. There we go. So we ended up 16th. It doesn't show us how many laps down we were because we actually finished. But 6:12 would have been 3-ish laps down. Probably either a little under 3 or a little over 3. But considering I saw Zachary Royal and Vindication pass me not too long before the end, I'm pretty sure I was 3 laps down. I definitely agree. I like this version much more. Particularly the end. I really like that double fast right-hander much more than that silly chicane. That being said, for Formula 1 it sort of makes sense. They really want to slow those cars down because those Formula 1 cars would be flying like crazy at the going onto that straightaway. So before we get into the regular practice and running and whatnot of the day, I definitely want to take a look at what in the world happened at the start of that race. I mean, that's one of the tricky things with Formula One is some of those corners, for safety reasons, they don't have much of a choice other than to try to slow the cars down. So you get some really janky feeling corners. Alright, so here we are in our beautifully painted McLaren 650S GT3. This is what's disappointing though. Look at all these BMWs. That's so boring. I wish the BMW was like locked to the first 4 people that wanted it. It's so boring when everybody picks it. I mean, I understand why people pick it, but it's boring. I also had to lift big time at the start because I think this Lamborghini gets a really poor start. I just had nowhere to go, so I had to lift. And then Peter Dodd gets a huge run on me down the middle. See his McLaren there. And then we all just had to really slow down. All of this looks mostly standard and safe, surprisingly. Oh, I like the 650S so much more. I like the front end on the 650S. I think the 650S looks better. I think it also drives quite a bit better. But, as with most things, that's incredibly subjective. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with liking the 12C and liking it more. Personally, I definitely prefer the 650S though. I like the way it looks quite a bit more. I definitely think it's more drivable. And it's, I mean, they mostly fixed the top end issue where it's not super slow in a straight line anymore. Okay, so this is the area of the track where all hell breaks loose. So you can see from my view, like here, coming over this crest, everything looks fine here. Everything's under control, everybody's doing what they should be. I turn this corner, all of a sudden, there's a car way out here that looks like he just completely missed the corner. There's a car right here, and then I just see smoke out here. There's somebody way over here on the right. Then suddenly, this green Lambo starts spinning, people hitting him like crazy. So I'm braking relatively hard. I managed to avoid him. I go to the left here, and this car somehow just shoots over to the left. Like, I should be clear here, but then it looks like he releases his brake is what it really looks like. Now that I see it here. Because my assumption right here is he's going to hold his brake, he's going to stay over here to the right, because he doesn't know where people are going, he doesn't know what's happening. But instead, it looks like he just releases his brake, and I am literally out of options at that point. So that was 100% a terrible choice from him. We will verify. Wow, my rear wing got messed up. And I do want to verify. By the way, you can, if you want to see on the bottom right here, my pedals right here, you'll actually be able to see when I hit the brakes. It's actually pretty early in this situation because I'm like this, right here, I'm like, this is not going to be good. Like, right, I see that and I'm like, okay, let's start slowing it down. Let's get through here nice and safely. I'm actually still on the brake at that point, downshifting. I'm like, oh, okay, he's going to stay over there. And then boom. I'm like, ugh. I actually wasn't that annoyed at the time. Now I'm actually more annoyed at that situation because that feels like that green Lamborghini made a terrible, terrible, terrible choice. But let's see it from some other people's perspectives first. No, I don't want to type in Python chat. I want to switch what car I'm looking at. And this Audi behind me, he got stuck between a rock and a hard place too. He was trying to safely follow me, and then I had to suddenly slam the brakes. He suddenly slammed the brakes, and I just get crunched. I mean, he has almost no reaction time here, because he doesn't have any time to react to what happens. Oh, that's funny. Who was this? This would have been Ekins, it looks like. Unfortunately, the real time doesn't switch, and this just tells you car number. I want to know what the hell happened up here in the first place, though. Let's find that green Lambo. I think he is the only green Lambo, so let's just see if we can figure out what in the world happened here. By the way, that Lambo sounds really good. Oh, sounds really good. Oh, that looked like... So it looks like Bartolai just loses it up here. See if we can't find somebody further forward. Where's this? Oh, this is the start-finish straight. How is he that far behind? I wonder if he started from the pits. Oh, so you can see their name up there. Thank you very much, Ratio. Oh, I almost thought that was Ratio. Reto. Okay, so this does go away. Okay, cool. Thank you very, very much, sir and or madam. Alright, so this will probably give a good view of what happened here. So Fabio Bartolai. Okay, he just loses it. Oh. Oh, man. I think this is how Burrows ends up over here. I think he gets hit. Yep. Oh, and then this guy gets hit too. This is Thomas. That's basically how all the craziness started. No, this is too far back now. Okay, now we can watch from the green Lambo, because we know what happened to start that. And Sando didn't have anywhere to go, as Fabio is just spinning through here. So the green Lambo picked poorly. Oh, why? Why? He's not on the brake. He's not on the brake. He's not on the brake. What a douchebag. Still not on the brake. So the fact that this continued as long as it did is 100% this guy right here's fault. Right here, hold the brake. Hold the brake as hard as you can. Or turn the wheel really sharp to the left and put yourself back in the wall. One or the other. The last thing you should ever do is not only not brake, but stay on the gas. Still not on the brake. Never hits the brake. Never hits the brake. Still, now hits the brake. And he escaped back to pits, which you're not allowed to do in REVS events. That explains how he ended up a lap ahead of where I was. Wow. So this guy probably gonna have a couple penalties, if not sitting out a race or two. After some people watch the replay on that one. Again, REVS is very relaxed, very easygoing, but when you do something like that and take out that many people, when all you had to do was hold the brake. Like, wow. And again, it takes very little time reading the rules of the GT3 series to know you can't hit escape and go back to pits. You are not allowed to. You have to drive back around and fix repairs in the pit box, like the three of us that actually do come back around do. If I go back to myself, I wonder if there's anybody else who went straight back to pits. Well, not even not steer into traffic. All he had to do was hold the brake when he first hit that other car. I mean, you completely lost control. You're facing the wrong direction. Either keep your wheel straight and hold the brake, or start lightly hitting the brake and turn back to the left so that your car goes off track. Oh, that's so frustrating. I had a lot of damage on the car. Well, the benefit of being the terrible, like, that's not, I mean, you can't say that because, well, let's watch from the start of it. Because judging from the way he raced the rest of the race, I think he's very fast. So, being a terrible driver, I don't think, one, that's never an excuse. You can still make good decisions. Two, I think he's actually fast. Now, for a first offense type thing, it would definitely not be a permaban. But it legitimately might be like a sit out a race, because that's... He's got traction control very, very, very high, which I can tell because his pedal is flipping up and around like that. So he does have his traction control very, very, very high. He might be using a gamepad. There's nothing necessarily bad with that, but judging by the fact that he just suddenly goes full brake and then full off. That was bad. The big thing is, I mean, again, the accident itself happened because it started because Fabio just hit the curb, doesn't quite catch it in time, and then craziness happens. So he hit the brake right before he hit that car, and then just, like, why does he never hit the brake again? That's what I don't understand. Why does he just never hit the brake again? Until there. Like, as with most things, I have absolutely no problem with people using gamepads as long as they can be safe. I have no problem with people using assists as long as they can be safe. That's not the issue at all. The only reason I mentioned the pad is because that's what it looks like to me from the way this is. But I sort of want to see how he drives around other people now. I mean, his lines don't look bad. He's going wide on some corners, but that's just understeer around here. DMNW, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. I mean, a big portion of it will be if the multiplayer community buys it and embraces it. But I really, judging from the screenshots I've seen and the alpha gameplay that I've seen, it looks like they're doing a lot to make it friendly for consoles. Not in terms of dumbing it down or making it any worse or any less intensive than it is, but just a lot of the menu stuff looks like it's getting some pretty massive changes. So I really can't see it being terrible on consoles by any means. The only thing is it might not be as pretty as it looks here, because they might have to turn down some of the shading effects and whatnot to get it to be that constant 60 FPS that they really want. Alright, we'll fast forward a little bit faster. Because outside of missing a few brake points when the car is heavy, I haven't seen anything that shows me that this guy is really terrible. Which would be that excuse of, I crashed, I don't know what to do. But he obviously knows how to control a car well enough to get around here in a decent fashion. Does it show me his lap times? No. I mean, and obviously the ABS and traction control are doing some of it for him, but he's still hitting the right lines for the most part. That corner he's not quite getting right, but that's a tough corner to get right anyway. But I mean, nothing here makes me think this guy doesn't have car control at all. All of this makes me think he was just a giant douche and made a terrible set of decisions that negatively impacted a lot of people's races. Because it is worth noting that let's go back to my perspective here. It's worth noting when I get to the top of the hill here, at this point, Burrows is all the way over here, he's way offline. Sando is all the way over here, he's way offline. Fabio is way over on the right, he's way offline. At this point, there's absolutely no reason any other incidents should happen. There's no reason any, like this incident should be clear now. All of us should be able to slow down a little bit, move around from right to left to let, because Sando will be coming back on, so I'll have to sweep over to the right. Fabio will be trying to come back on, so then I'll have to sweep back to the left. But this should be a relatively clear road, and then all of a sudden, now there's a Lamborghini flying across the track, hitting somebody that turns a situation that was basically over into, so that's 2 extra people involved, then 3-4 with me and the Audi, and I think everybody else gets through. Nope, he hits me a second time into that other car. So 3 to 4 other cars that did not need to be involved in that situation. By the way, just want to point out, it's really funny to watch the difference in my reaction to all of this, to his. So just watch my pedals as all of this happens. Fully on the gas. Braking, gas, brake hard. Just lay into the brakes. Because I want to keep myself as far over to that side as possible. Because I can't see other people, I don't know where they're at, I don't know what's going on. And then here I just try to turn it around as quick as I can. But with my TC setting, it's a little hard until I get it on the grass. Man. Well, on the bright side, there's literally nothing I could have done. Like, the only thing I could have done differently is predicted somehow that his car was going to fly across the track. The only thing I could do differently is right here, going towards his car instead of going towards the left. But this car is flying towards the right. This car is over on the right. I have no reason to assume that Lambo, because if any other driver is in there and they are holding the brake, that car is going to stay on the right-hand side. So I make the smarter decision, unfortunately. That happens. Oh. Oh well. It was still a race. Again, I was never planning for that to be a great race by any means. But it will depend on how they both feel on console. Personally, I prefer Assetto Corsa over Project Cars in almost every single category. The only thing I think Project Cars has a little advantage in is graphics, and that's because they focused so heavily on it. Now here, I should not have started going. I was trying to rip the car around. And you'll be able to see, if you look at my pedals, I just floor it, and I've turned really hard. I shouldn't have done that, but luckily I didn't hit anybody. I thought the car would spin up the rears and go, but I should have been in neutral and then first to try and do that. So I got that a little bit wrong, but in the moment I was so flustered just trying to get out of the way in case more people were coming. But yeah, spawning back to the pits is going to be the bigger part of the penalty, honestly. Could have gone to the left if you put the throttle back up. What did... I was already over to the left. Like, I mean, like, literally at this point, my only option is to floor the brake and hope that it holds, because if I dart to the right, I'm still not going to miss this car. Like, I'm just going to hit the far end of it. I mean, I guess if you're saying here, in this, at the start of it here, if I don't hit the brake and I just keep in the gas, I guess if that's what you're saying, then yes, that would definitely be true. But it's one of those things where, again, if I'm assuming that everybody is making the proper choices as they're spinning of either holding the brake or trying to get the car off of the main area, and if that is the case, if people are doing that, then I want to slow down to try to make sure that I and everybody behind me gets through it as safely as possible. I didn't realize Emmanuel got caught in that too. Emmanuel did not have a very great race yesterday either. I just noticed this. So yeah, if I had just floored it, I could have possibly gotten by. But at the same time, if I had floored it, there's an almost equal possibility that he would have come back into me instead of Emmanuel also. Oh, that's just part of that bodywork. Okay. I was like, what in the world is that? I kind of want to see that from the TV camera real quick. All that ridiculousness. Let's try and find the best angle for it. Which one? The funniest thing is Burrows, who got hit first, I think actually ended up almost the least impacted by what happened. As funny as that is, because he got hit initially by Fabio, who lost it on the right-hander and then slammed into him, basically T-boned him in the side. And then he just got shot off on the shorter version of the circuit, off to the side there. And then by the time he got it back on track and going, everything had already finished happening. That's funny. It's also worth noting, at some point later in the race, that green Lambo ends up around me again. I don't remember where it was. I think it was going into turn 1 at some point. At least that part of the track. I didn't remember doing that. Oh, I just clipped too much of that curb. Ugh. By the way, that was probably really scary for the car that was coming, but that's sort of an example of if you absolutely have to back up, make sure you only back up exactly the amount you have to get your car around, so you leave as much space as possible for the other car to come through. Oh, lap 25-ish. Okay, so that'll be further down here. How in the world do you remember that? That's crazy. I guess I could just look at the mini map every time and see if there's anybody in the pits when I come by. You don't need a steering wheel, but it definitely performs better with one than it does without. But you can definitely play it with a controller. There's quite a few places where you would be able to find some decent settings for that. Here, it might be this lap. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, because he cut across the he cut across. You're not supposed to cut across the pit exit line, so you're supposed to stay all the way to the right, basically till here. You basically just take the inside line in the corner. So that's another technical infraction. I'm definitely glad I let him by. That would have been bad news for me. I want to see when Flavio ended up hitting me. Had to be one of these other laps. But yeah, in terms of immersion and feeling, you'll definitely get much more out of a wheel. But it's worth at least trying with a controller to see if you like the way it feels anyway. When in the world did Flavio and I make contact? I mean, nobody's close enough to me on these. Oh, that's when the race leaders were coming through. Nobody around me. 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 Was it really that much earlier in the race? I'm not a huge fan of drifting, and I'm really, really bad at it. So chances are very, very low I will ever do drifting. It's something I don't mind watching in real life, but outside of that, I'm not too keen on it. Oh, this might have been the lap. Nope. Oh, this will be the lap. Because it looked like he just put it in real hard into the corner and couldn't quite. Because I was taking a really shallow exit here. Yeah. Oh, poor guy. I just get through the center of the corner so much worse than he does. I mean, he can accelerate so much earlier into this corner. Now, what I was expecting him to do was stay on the outside, so I was already taking a shallower entry, planning on taking a shallower exit and taking less speed through it. But obviously, I can't, in the moment, I can't tell him that. So he assumes, oh, okay, I can tuck back in. But I was just going so slow. Oh. So again, that's one of those incidents that's completely fine. Neither of us got any damage that mattered. We both minor spin, just continue on. Oh, that's funny. And again, even for something as minor as that, he actually said sorry afterwards for. So that was a race. It'll be very interesting to look at the notes afterwards on that one. Very interesting indeed.